Hello, Eminetov, Olympic athlete.
Hello, Dean Kilby, expert human.
Hey, yesterday was special. 1 year.
I know, this month is the first year that I got back into gymnastics. How good?
Okay, so it wasn't specifically yesterday.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, got it. So tell me, because we haven't spoken for a while and on this sort of a format, and there's heaps to update people on and share with them about your journey, because you've done a couple of pretty cool things over the past year.
Just a couple. Yeah, I'm really enjoying now when you get on the phone and you tell me all these incredible things you're doing. I have some to share as well.
Yeah, you've got your equivalent.
Yes, so
Very
I'm
good.
wearing my Olympic jumper
Yay.
as I went to the Olympics, which is cool. But yeah, it felt like that was a really awesome journey, but it was just all a part of everything. And it just was. Now it doesn't even feel like it had that much significance. It did, but it didn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested. I've got some questions for you. I mean, these formats are normally an opportunity for you and Trevor and Emily to ask me questions and pick my brain, but I'm super keen to hear from you in the aftermath of the Paris Olympics, as you reflect back on the year that was. I'm interested in your transformation. Like the journey is one thing, the accomplishment is great and all, but for you, what was it that you transformed? What was it you had to kind of deal with? What did you bump up against? And what did you have to break through just to get to where you were in Paris?
Mm,
That's a
mountain,
lot. So, you know,
mountains.
you got to like think right back now to the very beginning where Australia qualified, and then you were like, man, I still have that itch to scratch. Is
And
that how
it's
it was?
yeah, and it was possible now, as well, which is different, right? So, okay, if we take it back, obviously I did gym from 5 or 6 to 24, and that was my whole entire life. And within that, everything I learned about being a human being was basically from the experiences I had as being an elite athlete, right? Which is both good and, as I soon learned a year back out of the sport when I decided to retire, also lacks in a lot of things. One being which is knowledge in how to keep yourself healthy. There wasn't really a priority in being healthy. The priority was being a good athlete. I don't care how you do that. I had my Chinese coach, for example, telling me that you have to be light, and in order to be light, you can't drink water because water like adds weight to you, right? So retired at 24, spent a year of fun and partying. That was really good. And then I was like, what is my life? Who am I? Tried to look for a job, started gaining weight. That's where you come in. Eventually, I mean, God, I didn't meet you until it was a good 6 months of me racking my brain, being like, what the hell is wrong with me? Because all I could see was what was wrong with me. And I just, it wasn't my fault. I was in the world of this is not fair, pity me, woe is me. I've worked so hard my whole life. I don't deserve this. That's how I looked at gaining weight, which is, I look back now and I'm like, that is so crazy. But I'm really grateful because it sent me to an awesome doctor called Maria Mackey, who will be speaking at our event in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah.
Yeah. And then she obviously put me in touch with you. So got in touch with you, did the Simple Health protocol, lost 13 kilos in 10 weeks, which was mind blowing for myself and my whole family because they were along the journey with me. And then it was like, okay, great. Now what? And I think what the biggest thing out of that was that I realized and I got really complete and accepted that I was finished with gymnastics. And I was like really okay with that no longer being who I was. I had always related to myself as Emma the gymnast. And so that was also why gaining the weight, I think, impacted me so much, was because I no longer looked like a gymnast and I only sort of thought that was what I was worth. So losing the weight, going through that whole process, I became really happy with being Emma, whoever I decided that to be. And then, gosh, it must have been 2 years after that that I decided to go back to being a gymnast.
Yeah.
But in a completely different context, right? Like now I had a goal, right? So as you said, the possibility became available for me to go to the Olympics, which was something that I had been chasing my whole career, because back in the day, that had been the pinnacle. That was like the top of the mountain. Going to the Olympics meant that you were a successful gymnast. Leaving gymnastics and not making it to the Olympics, that meant all of your hard work from like being a child and slaving away, missing the parties, not drinking the water. That was all for nothing because you didn't make the Olympics, right? But now the possibility came up for me to go to the Olympics and sort of fulfill on that, but in a different way. It didn't mean that I was trying to get to the top of the mountain anymore. That was going to be something to just drive what I now wanted to create after that. Yeah, does that sort of sum it up?
Oh, it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. And it really starts to paint a picture of what transformation really looks like. Everyone's got their kind of version of those constraints where you're so identified with some aspect of your life to the degree to which you don't even know who you are, but you are that, and you'll defend it to the nth degree, but it's not fulfilling, it's not satisfying, and it doesn't leave you up to what you really want. You're not experiencing being complete. And so that experience of being complete took you actually letting that go, right? So this is so perfect because, I've got my version, right? So yeah. So I joke with you about the accomplishment of your participation at the Olympic Games was for your mother. And how satisfying and fulfilling it was for her, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, I had like one job growing up, and that was find a cure for diabetes and help my brother.
Yeah.
That was my job. I thought I was born to fulfill that, and that my scientific career kind of went a particular direction, not where I thought it would go. And then that my brother died, that was the one job I had. And like, I didn't get that done. And so the disappointment in myself, the perceived disappointment I thought I was for my family, especially my brother, like on my watch, what, right? Now, all of that stress and pressure and the burden and the weight of that game was all made up. None of it was true or real. We do that to ourselves. And it took you going from this talented girl and going, you know what, maybe that isn't who I am. And it's not until you allow yourself to say that and kind of put it to the side. You don't invalidate it. You don't get rid of it. You just put it there and then open yourself up to, well, who could I be? Right? Now, the beauty of it is you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No.
Right? Because you don't invalidate that talent. And then it's like, wow, who could I be? Well, how you threw yourself back into training and then performed and developed and were coachable. I mean, went from a girl with a talent to a woman on a mission.
Yeah.
Right. And similarly, when I let go of that whole inauthentic constraint that was really burdening me, right? And I got it for what it was. It was a blessing. It put me in a particular direction. I was able to develop myself on that journey to a certain degree. But then when I let go of all the inauthenticity surrounding it, holding the constraint in place, then I was free to create myself. And guess what I created? It's someone who's out in the world curing diseases
Yeah.
and empowering geniuses way smarter than me to be able to come together in a particular context, right? So when people go, how did you help Emma, come out of retirement and get in shape at 28 to go to the Olympic Games? I tell them, no, that's what she chose to do in her retirement.
Yeah.
She was still retired. But what you retired was that inauthentic story about yourself and all the constraints that go along with it. So that's real transformation. So it's perfect the way that you articulated it, and
Good.
and it takes time. It took.
Yeah. I think, and as I've sort of said to you as well, I mean, hindsight's a funny thing, but I'm glad that I went to the Olympics this time and I didn't go when I was 18, because I wouldn't have experienced it the same way, and it wouldn't have been for anything. Like, it wouldn't be as meaningful, because it would have just been to validate everything I had done. Whereas this was meaningful, like the whole process of getting there, everything now after, like it's meaningful and it's contributing to others. It's not about me and validating my work,
Yeah. Well, who's to know?
Who's to know? Who's to know? Yeah.
Who's to know? But I appreciate that sort of retrospective insight, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it does get you just fully in the world of appreciating where you're at, and
Yeah.
that it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and those moments are special. I had one, oh gosh, during the pandemic when I had my head injury. It was a
Yeah.
very cathartic experience, going through that recovery period, and at the same time watching the entire Cobra Kai series on Netflix. And then
Yes.
you get to the end of whatever it is, season 5 or whatever, the last episode. Oh man, I was in tears. Because it kind of recreated my whole life. That was what the 80s was all about, the music, the movies. It was all about this certain kind of individual empowerment. And
I wasn't born
anyway,
then. So.
no, it's that exactly. But listen, The Karate Kid is a very transformational movie. Everyone ought to watch it. Everyone ought to watch it. And you got to ask yourself, at what point, when Mr. Miyagi and Daniel-san make that pact, and then he gets to work on doing all those things, painting the house, sanding the deck, washing the cars, etc. At what point would the ordinary person have quit?
Yeah.
It's not comfortable. You don't understand it. It's certainly not how you want to be spending your time. You fantasize about other things and it's repetitive. And it's like, at what point would people have quit? If they ask themselves that question authentically, and then they miss out on that pivotal moment when Daniel fully cracks it, and then Mr. Miyagi starts throwing punches and kicks, and he discovers for himself that he'd actually learned karate. And you went on this journey, and along that journey, at some point, you discovered for yourself who you really are.
Yeah.
That was very
So good. Yeah, no. Worth every moment. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like you discover who you are as now a fixed thing. No, who you discover who you are is who you create yourself to be. And then you get to be the author of that next chapter. You get to be the author of the next, like the rest of the book, basically, that chapter 3. Yeah. So
Yeah.
amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. And now it's all about contributing to other people, really. So now it's time to, I think if I look back, one of the biggest reasons why I even probably got myself into the situation to find Simple Health was we didn't have an understanding or like any education around like ways to be healthy or what it meant and things like that. So now I want to try and help people learn before they have to deal with it.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what we do. So Simpler Health, for those who haven't been following us and listening for the first time or just not familiar with the language, I call it a biophenomenological approach to health transformation. So if we work backwards, transformation, what does that mean? Well, we just discussed it. So you're just not the same human being as you were a year ago, as you were 2 years ago. And it is an evolutionary process. And you do go like this, and then there's a sort of like a leap, a quantum leap in not just performance, but your experience of yourself, who you know yourself to be, what your expressions are like out here in the world. So it's distinct, and you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, you build on it, but there's like this quantum leap, right? So and health transformation, not just fitness, not strength and all of that. It's like real health.
Yeah.
And your well-being, like the experience of being well, right? And it's bio, you got to learn all the science. So we apply the scientific distinctions, and then who's applying all the scientific distinctions is a human being. And you discover for yourself, like in your view, your experience, the phenomena that you are in the world. And all of the relationships between phenomena are transformable. Now, that makes anything possible. If you are, that everything's transformable. So, there'll be a constant evolution like this and just massive leaps periodically, but you'll be responsible for causing those leaps. It's not like just an accidental thing. They happen when they happen. You sit and wait in hope for no, like you actively cause them. How do you do that? Well, you got to get on the court.
Yeah.
And that takes being at risk. So if we go back like a year ago and you went, oh my God, I can go back into the gym. So you weren't for yourself a conditioned athlete. And there you were back in the gym and all eyes were on Emma Nedov. What was that like?
Yeah, I was gonna say, as you were speaking about that and like being on the court, it was wow, like, we're sitting here now and wow, I went to the Olympics. Yeah, I had to work my butt off literally to get there. It was a matter of getting a team, like some people around me that could help me because, I couldn't do it myself. That was from Mark, who was my coach, who was incredible. Like, oh my gosh, I have so much to thank him for. Alan, my strength coach, obviously you and Trevor helping me with my nutrition. I had 2 chiropractors, a physio. Like, firstly, it was like getting the team around me that was going to be able to provide me with the knowledge that I didn't have myself. I think that was really eye-opening, was being open to having other people have an input, and that I'm not always right. I don't know everything. I can't see everything. It comes from being coachable, obviously. And then just showing up every day and just going for it. And as much as I struggled with this, being okay with it potentially not working out, because I knew that something great would come from it either way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
if
there
in
would be the expectation that you should know everything because you're already a world champion.
Yeah.
Right. And you already had a reputation and you were known and amazing accolades along the way. So one would expect, and you could even have the personal arrogance to be that, listen, I know what needs to get done. I'm fine. Leave me to it. I'll sort this out. I just got to do it. And that, for most people, is just such an ineffective approach. It's a very weak strategy. And when you said you put a team in place, you put that team in place. I mean, it's not like the team all of a sudden just fell into place. Like, you're mature enough and smart enough to put that team in place, and you trusted that team. And now you said, because, there was knowledge that you didn't have, but it wasn't about you learning all of that, which you didn't know, because knowledge at the end of the day doesn't necessarily cause the results.
Yeah.
When you've got people that you can trust, and it's like, you know what, they're the expert. I'm just going to put that aspect in their hands and trust them. And that person and that person. And then what you were free to do was perform.
Yes, do my thing.
Now,
Yeah.
it's hard enough because it's the performance is not just you're in action in the gym on a beam, or no, you got to deal with all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? All the internal state, your thoughts and memories. I mean, you go back after almost 4 years of not competing, and then you're in the gym. You can't do stuff that you used to be able to do.
No, it's humiliating.
Right. So the embarrassment, the humiliation, and what was so amazing is you shared the journey online, and you didn't share just all the good stuff, and unbelievably inspiring for my daughter, not just in watching you in the world of gymnastics, but in life, that you were so open and free to share the failures, that when you fell off the bars, you slip on the beam and you'd hurt yourself, or you'd trip on a wire, and like, just clearly you were so disoriented. You didn't know what the heck you're doing.
I'm actually generally quite clumsy. We don't have many cups left in the house. But yeah, I think that was probably the most eye-opening experience. Was I actually looked at gaining weight, for example, as one of the biggest failures I'd ever experienced.
Wow.
And overcoming that, and I think really beginning to, as corny as it sounds, really beginning to love who I was despite how I appeared, right? Because that to me had been something really important growing up in a sport that's judgmental, like, right? I gained the strength in being okay with failing a little bit more, because in the past, we weren't allowed to share a video of you falling off. You weren't allowed. You'd get in trouble. And
Wow.
gymnastics has this like picture perfect way about it that I think is sort of coming down a little bit now. But we're all done up. We have our makeup on, our hair done, beautiful leotard. You can't have your undies or your bra showing, like, and so it was really freeing to be able to fail and also share that with other people, and people coming back to me and saying how awesome it was to see that, I'd been so successful in their eyes in gymnastics. And here I was sort of, tripping over a wire or slipping on a bar at the Olympics. So yeah, I had to really learn to be okay to fail. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's so perfect. The
And
journey is perfect. Yeah.
do you know what I have always stuck on my like actually thingy is something you said to me one time, and it says get yourself out by stepping up, expand, don't quit.
Huh.
And you had shared a story how that had resonated with you, and that's become something big to me, is like, I guess I don't really view failures as like failures. It's just like, you have two options. You either give up or keep going. And so it's really been a matter of expanding and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a powerful context to live from. If you don't like where you're at, step up and expand,
Yeah.
right? That usually it's like, I don't like where I'm at. I'm going to change the game. I'm going to quit. I'm going to get away from it. And what we start to do is invalidate it. It was the wrong game for me.
Mm.
It was the wrong whatever, and if you look at the areas of life people complain the most, right? It's always some degree of invalidating it, but successful people focus on what they want, not on why they can't have it,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you're always focused and investing your energy and attention and life in trying to resolve what you think the problem is, whatever you think was holding you back from getting what you want. Now, if you just keep focusing on what you want, eventually you'll end up taking the appropriate actions or series of actions that move you closer towards that.
Yeah.
Because then a year goes by, another year goes by, 5 years, 10 years, and you're like, man, had I just gotten on with it 10 years ago,
Yeah.
That's so great. Now, this is interesting for me because, sorry, I'm making this all about you, but I'm loving it. I'm
All
loving
right.
it. So, whatever we resist,
Persists.
yes, it persists, and we often become,
Mm-hmm.
right? For example, how many people do we know in our lives that complain about their parents? Oh, my dad is always blah, blah, blah. My mum never, ha, ha, ha. And you're looking at them going, oh my God, you're exactly like your parent, right? So whatever you resist, it's like if you're pushing against a wall and you're resisting that wall, you're pushing against it. And firstly, what there is if you're an observer, it's difficult if you're the one pushing against the wall. It's like, it's hard to see the forest for the trees, right? You're in the middle of it all. And right, you're just like, I don't want to be like that. And you resist it. And what you don't see is that you're confining yourself to that trap. Because you can't go create anything other than being connected to that wall. You have to resist it, right? So, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to parent my kids like my parents parented me, all that sort of stuff, right? Or when I'm a boss, I'm going to treat my employees differently, or how, in the next relationship or whatever it is, right? And then also, the further into life you go, the more you have to resist it.
Yeah.
And then you got to put two hands on that wall. And then you end up becoming the wall. Okay. Now, you're wondering, where am I going with this?
I'm looking forward to this. Yep.
So all those judgmental pricks that you were at the effect of throughout your entire gymnastics career makes you now kind of look back and confront how judgy you can be.
For sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And like even yeah, it's funny you say that because before I finished, like I had lots of people saying, or they joke around like, oh, you watch out when you quit gym, like you're going to gain weight. And I was like, no, I will not. And I fully did. And yeah, I guess I can totally be the same way.
Yeah. And you've gained weight and then you lost it. And then, now you're empowered and you've accomplished amazing things. And now you look at people and you're like, get over yourself. I did it and it's so straightforward. And yeah.
I had to learn when I started coaching, I had to learn to just not do that.
Everyone does it. I mean, anyone that's lost a substantial amount of weight, like from ordinary people through to even qualified people. I mean, there's famous in the internet and through books and stuff, and I just do not rate his scientific merits on what he says, etc. But
Yeah.
it all started because he lost some weight.
Yeah.
And now they're an expert on everything.
Yeah.
I became, expert to the degree that I am, not because I lost weight, it's because I invested myself in actually learning the science and then testing it on hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Find the process. And I'm still not at the source of it to the degree that someone like yourself or Trevor or anyone else that's lost the weight is at the source of it. I've never experienced that. So you guys are way more powerful at supporting people to go through that journey than me. Right?
Yeah.
Now, these days, my job is ensuring that you've got what you need.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and that's a big thing. And then as a coach now, because now you've got a few pivotal moments. Okay.
Yeah.
There's life before retirement, life after retirement, life before.
And I'm only 28.
Life after the weight gain. Now there's life before the Olympics. But not just life, there's who you are as a coach before going back to gymnastics, competing in the nationals, competing in the Oceania Games, competing in the Paris Olympics, and then coming back. And then kind of there was a little bit of uncertainty and a bit, right, until you got your feet back on the ground again and you're coaching. What is it like for you now compared to before a year ago as a coach?
I would say the biggest thing that I like to work with people on is enjoying the journey to get there. Someone asked me when I got back from the Olympics, because obviously I didn't have the best competition of my life, which was disappointing for me. And I am quite open about saying that to people. So when someone says, "Oh, how was the Olympics?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was fine, but I was really upset with my competition." And so someone said to me, "Oh, well, was it worth it then?" And I thought about it and I was like, well, yeah, because every single thing that I've done for the past year has sort of had I guess that as like a purpose or like an extended goal, but it's been everything that's happened along the way, the people I've met, the person I've become, the contribution I've been able to give to other people. You know, I'll get mums coming up to me and saying how inspiring it is for their kids and them to have watched me do what I did. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. It was worth every second, even though I fell on beam at the Olympic Games and it was mortifying. It was absolutely worth it. And so I think now when I'm coaching, I just have that fresh in my mind. So when I'm coaching people to lose 30, 40 kilograms and they're doing the protocol just so that they can lose 30 to 40 kilograms, or just so that they can get healthy, or just so they can fit in that dress or something like that. I really work on being present, like what we sort of worked on at one point, and to being present to what they're doing now, and it not being about like the outcome is going to be the outcome because of your performance. And so it's about enjoying the performance. Otherwise, you're going to get there and it's going to be the top of the mountain for you and you're going to fall off.
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference.
Yeah. What you say before you fall off the top of the mountain is when you get there, is this it?
Yeah.
I work hard for this? What?
Yeah. And this is where I find the Olympics so relatable to other things, right? Which is why I really enjoy coaching both athletes and non-athletes, because it's the same, right? The Olympics to me used to occur that way, and I watched other people have it occur that way, where they got there and the words that came out of their mouth were, "Is this it?" And then they come home and they're like depressed because they don't know what to do now, right? And so it's absolutely that. People get 30, 40 kilos down, unless you've enjoyed and been present to every part of that process, you're going to get there and forget where you started.
That's right. Yeah. There's another Australian Olympian, Natalie Cook, who shares about when she won gold.
Yeah.
And the elation and the experience on the podium and all of that joy lasted about 20, 30 seconds. And then that voice in the head said, maybe if I've got 2 gold medals, maybe then I'll be enough.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is just absolutely brilliant music to my ears that you really have discovered for yourself and continue to discover deeper cuts on it, that world of performance.
Yeah.
And you're a performer. And that's why, I love, we love all clients because, we get to make a difference to them and they put money in our bank account. So we love all clients. Okay. So it's a win-win situation. And we especially love those that are performers, that love putting themselves out there at risk, putting themselves at issue, and in big games, whether it be, yourself, to, Trevor's favorite is Jack Jones, the singer.
Yeah.
And, there's a commitment to performance. And it's interesting that even performers haven't yet discovered fully the world of performance as performance. And we started to flesh this out, and it really takes getting on the court. That's why you can't just give someone, oh gosh, I talked to Pat Cash, right? So I grew up idolizing Pat Cash when I was learning how to play tennis, and I tried to copy his serve, and I ruined my back. And he and Boris Becker had this crazy serve where the back extension was insane. And anyway, that's who I was trying to emulate, and I screwed with my back. And anyway, now we're friends, and I've told him that, and he's like, "Oh God, no, it ruined my back too." So, but you can't give someone a book on how to play tennis.
Mm.
Expect them to read it and then be able to play tennis.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a coach, what you want to do is get them on the court and watch how they move.
Yeah.
And you look at things and you tweak things along the way. And at some point, they become a worthwhile tennis player, decent tennis player, and they've learned and practiced. So it's the total number of hours that you spend practicing. It's all about the practice, and life is a day-to-day practice.
Yeah.
And you need a coach to see what you can't see. You can't see it because you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But they can't see what needs to be seen and adjust what needs to be adjusted unless you're on the court.
Yeah.
So there we were you were about to compete in the Nationals up on the Gold Coast. Was it the Gold Coast or somewhere?
Yeah, Gold Coast.
And we met up the night before, and you were all psychological, trying to figure out where was your thought process. You've made this amazing comeback. You're about to compete in the Nationals at 28 years of age. All eyes are on you, and you're in your head all messed up about some garbage in your relationship to your mother. I remember.
Yes.
Trying to figure out what does this mean?
She would ask me like just the most simple question, like, how are you feeling? And all of a sudden I was like so triggered, and I was like, why is she asking me that? Oh my God. I'd like forgotten about that. That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, listen, you can't control your thoughts and feelings. Let them be.
Yeah.
And what there is to focus on is your performance, right? Action or inaction. And I remember you asking the question, well, what do I think about then?
Yeah.
Your performance. And it was just so obvious. It was like the penny dropped. There's nothing about you, whoever you consider yourself to be, to figure out, to resolve, to fix or change. All there is to do is perform.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I distinctly remember in the couple of weeks before Nationals, I went to go and train at a different gym. And I was with Mark, my coach, and I was also with Dave, who works a lot with my like performance side of things. And he was just watching in the gym. And I didn't like the surface that I was using to use the beam, like, because it was different. And so I literally, all I was like thinking about, talking about was how bad the surface was. And so I was not focused on my performance at all. And I just kept, like, I kept falling off. I would do it and I'd fall off. And I'd be like, yeah, see, I knew it. It's because the floor like sucks. And I just constantly was like trying to think or like trying to prove that the floor sucked. And like all that did was I wasn't thinking about my performance at all. I was so busy trying to be all in here and prove myself right that I wasn't even performing.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, crazy. And being aware of that is so game changing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, oftentimes you end up proving yourself right.
Every time. Yeah. And like just Dave came up to me and was like, hey, how about you stop trying to prove to us that you don't like the floor? We already know. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I am thinking about that a lot.
So that was Dave Dingle. He's your sports psychologist, and he's one of the
I don't
high
really know.
performance psychologists in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was just so funny. And Mark, bless his soul, he's just standing there, like, just waiting for me to just get it. Just go. Like, just don't think about anything. Just do your job.
Yeah. And then there was 2 weeks between the Nationals at which you finished 4th overall.
Yeah.
And 2nd on the beam.
Yes.
It was an amazing accomplishment. You know, your first competition is the Australian Nationals and you do great. And then you start to really flesh out and discover for yourself this world of performance as performance, not performance as performance outcomes, right? So when we often say performance to people, where their brain goes is to performance outcomes, i.e. results. So
Yeah.
you have no direct say over your performance outcomes. I mean, especially in a sport where you're being judged
Yeah.
and it's point-based and it's, you know, and human beings are flawed and all this sort of stuff, the judges. So, but even more objective analyses, say, for example, your weight, when you get on the scales, you can't yell at the scales and expect the numbers to change. Right?
If only.
You don't have a say over that. What you do have a say over is your performance, distinguished as action or inaction. That's all the universe responds to. Okay. So there you were at the Oceania Games. And I remember, where were they again? In New Zealand?
New Zealand. Yeah.
So your first, so it's your second competition post-retirement and your first international representing Australia.
I also knew it was going to be important for Olympic selection.
And it was important for Olympics. So right. And I remember asking you, it was like winning the whole thing. You won gold overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I asked you, hey, how'd you go? And you go, I didn't even know I was winning. I go, what were you doing? You went, enjoying it. Like I was present.
I was. Yeah. I had no idea that I won. I didn't really care either. Yeah. Like, I mean, cared about my performance. I didn't care about my placing.
Well, it's where your attention was. Your attention was on performance.
Yeah.
And now to do that, you have to be present. You got to be in the here and now.
Yeah.
And anytime the distractions show up, you just let them go. Let them go. Notice it. Oh, okay. It's got nothing to do with what I'm here for. Just let it go.
Yeah.
You don't have to interact with it. You don't have to. The more you interact with it, the bigger that stuff gets. Yeah. So that's extraordinary. And what you now have is performance as performance. And then you go to Paris and the last event, for you, and you were the last performer in the Australian team on the beam, your preferred apparatus.
Yeah.
You fell off.
I know. Oh, it's fine. It got Julian some airtime on the TV. Oh, far
Now,
out.
for me, as someone who's coached and mentored you, watching how you've dealt with that is impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it really showcases that you weren't just all about performance as performance. That's one distinction out of probably hundreds that you've developed over the past couple of years, right? So you fall off, there's a moment of upset. I see you interact with your boyfriend. It's like, you're okay, you could have a laugh. Trevor heard you swear or something.
I was trying to make the other girls feel good.
There you go. Again, bang, your attention's out here.
Yeah.
Right. And that points to the kind of human being that you've become. It wasn't just all about you and your failure and your upset and your disappointment. You were astutely aware of, okay, what's going on out here? The people on my team, people in my life, right? People who have supported you, etc. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to let that define anything. It doesn't mean what I could have made it mean in a moment and use that to ruin my life. And it's almost like a non-event now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I could have very well used that as a huge reason to whinge and complain about everything that was done wrong. Like, rather than that, though, it's like that is just what happened. We laugh about it now because obviously everyone kept calling me the beam queen when I fell. And And I think if there's one thing that I've gained, you know, if we go back to failure, for example, I'm able to, I would hope, help someone else now get through that, because that's what's going to happen. Like, what happened after that as well was 3 or 4 days later, when there was just the beam final competition, um, 6 out of 8 athletes fell. 2 of which being the 2 American girls were the favorites to win, Simone Biles. And it's like, that's the reality, you know, like you can't, it's what you make it, right? So yeah, I will say I'm very fortunate though that I have had, you know, yourself and other people around me to support me.
Yeah. Your family's phenomenal.
Yeah, I am very, very blessed. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I love my family, and but I wish I had yours. They're just amazing.
Yeah, they're great. But yeah. So hey, you know, it's just
So
what
then
happens.
you came back, and then it's like, hey, Emma, you got to create something. What's the next mountain that you're choosing to climb?
Mm.
And what did you create?
Now,
What's coming up on November 14th?
oh yeah, we've got a Simple Health event coming up, which is going to be amazing. It's an opportunity for people to understand not just Simpler Health, but understand health on so many different levels. Like we've got a gut specialist, is it stem cell regenerative health specialist, Maria Mackey, who was pivotal in me getting well, specialist in integrative health and things like that, yourself giving a talk. And I think what was really highlighted for me as well is it's a fantastic opportunity for people to come and either learn for themselves or learn so that they can give this opportunity for other people. I hope it's the first of many,
Yes.
because like I said, a big thing I struggled with was not having anywhere to go. Like I didn't have any education, I had no understanding. It wasn't necessarily my fault, but I didn't know where to find it. And this is the perfect opportunity for people to understand and really get their hands on what it means to be healthy and how to do it.
Well, I love that you've created it. It's called Untangling Metabolic Health.
Yep.
And so you're going to be presenting, you're going to be hosting, emceeing, or whatever you call it. And people, our guests will be able to find out about what it is that you were dealing with, right? The actual condition, the physiological condition and constraint that you were dealing with, and the like pathway or journey of how you corrected it.
Yeah.
So people can learn all of those insights. Everyone wants to, what did you do? And well, we could tell you, you're not going to listen. So how people listen is they have to invest in something first. And we've made it possible for people to register for this event. It's $60 to come
Yeah.
along. Now, there are many people who have come to us and said, I can't afford that. If people can afford it, right? Our program, it's affordable, but in the story of their own, whatever circumstances of life, $60, do whatever it takes you to get that money together, pay it, because you'll learn the protocol. I'll tell you the insights of why it's so successful, how it works, what you have to do. You'll come away from the event with some actionable accesses to be able to make a difference in your own health and vitality. And then Emma was on my back, like, Dean, get some really shit hot speakers there. So yes, we've got Dr. Maria Mackey, who's a phenomenal integrative and functional medicine doctor. She's the one that identified the biochemical unworkability in Emma's situation and referred her to me in the first place. So she's really, really clever with her biochemistry. We've got myself. We've got a gut microbiome expert who has helped to pioneer fecal microbiota transplants. So this isn't just some, and not to shit on naturopaths, no pun intended, or anyone else that thinks that they understand the gut microbiome. I'm a microbiologist originally by training. I don't understand the gut microbiome. It's so complex. So we've got one of the top scientists in Australia and the world from the Centre for Digestive Diseases coming along to discuss that. And then in terms of stem cells and regenerative medicine, which I'm one of the pioneering leaders in myself, but I work with the top clinicians here and around the world. And one of the 2 top doctors that I would rate here in Australia is coming along. He's a clinical colleague, and I refer patients to him, and we're working on projects overseas together. He's the only, he was the first Regenex certified stem cell practitioner here in Australia, and still offers those procedures for patients dealing with osteoarthritic joints who are looking for an alternative non-surgical treatment option to improve joint mobility, decrease pain, and avoid surgery. So he's going to be there to answer any questions that people might have and explain the relationship between metabolic dysregulation, or in my view, metabolic derangement, and tissue degradation, especially in our joints, and why the relationship between being overweight and joint pain, what's central to them both is inflammation. And tissue degrades in that context of an inflammatory or chronic inflammatory response. So there'll be experts, there'll be a lot of information, there'll be a lot on what you can do about your current lot, whether you're dealing with something in your own health situation, or you want to learn and you want to give that information to somebody else, or you want to bring them with you such that a change can be made. November 14 is your opportunity. It's at 6:30 p.m. at a venue called Laporte Space in Rosebery. So if you're in Sydney, come along. If you're not in Sydney, book your flights, get your backside here, come along, and you'll get to meet Emma. And we'll also, we've got a number of sponsors, including Chef Ben Horn, who's the former executive chef of Icebergs Restaurant. Those in Sydney would know about it, in Bondi. And he'll be preparing food appropriate to the phase 1 of the Simpler Health protocol. So you get to experience that as well.
This is what happens when I said to Dean, hey, Dean, I want to hold a Simpler Health event. And he goes, yeah, no worries. Let me just call my friends. And then I was like, whoa, okay.
And then I was saying, Emma, Trevor, Emily, get bums on seats. It's going to be amazing. So
no, I'm really
bums on seats.
Yes.
And preferably fat bums on seats that are committed to not being fat anymore.
Yes.
Sort you out.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. I think it's going to be epic.
Yeah. So for that, the cost of the event, you'll get all of that. And also between now and then, if you choose to join and be coached on the Simpler Health protocol, we'll waive the membership cost. And so you'll save a couple of $100. Plus you'll get everything on the night, plus a goodie bag with good stuff from our sponsors. So yeah, well worth it. So
worth it. No, thank you so much. This has been very eye-opening. I remembered some things I hadn't thought of for a while.
Good, good. Well, it's important to always be in communication, have somewhere to communicate, and it's got to be sourceful, constructive communication that allows you to be complete. And so you've gone through a lot over the past year, accomplished a lot, and sacrificed a lot as well, you know, and you really ought to thank yourself for that. And, you know, because it will serve you very, very well in life, especially as a coach. And I'm really excited for all of the people that you get to coach and interact with, because they will benefit from it in ways and over years that you will never know of, you'll never get thanked for. But I want you to hear it from me now. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the commitment that you are to making a difference to other people. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Likewise. You're special. Well, you're part of the team. All right, everyone, be at the event.
T-shirt underneath my Olympic thing.
Yeah. So yeah, come to the event, and any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Emma, Trevor, Emily. We're here to answer your questions. and support you in your health journey. Thanks for listening.